Hey everybody, today we've got a rather special dish that we're cooking. Beef, spring onions and ginger. Let's go. So for this dish you are going to need 225 grams or 8 ounces of beef, approximately 5 spring onions, a good chunk of ginger and 3 cloves of garlic, 50 grams of mangetout, half an onion finely sliced, a teaspoon of sesame oil, a good splash of light soy sauce, a tablespoon of rice wine, a good pinch of salt and pepper, a teaspoon and a half of sugar, a tablespoon of cooking oil, 200 milliliters of plain water or the stock of your choice, a tablespoon of cornflour for thickening and for marinade. So for this recipe I've used a whole sirloin steak, which adds up to about 8 ounces of meat, which is perfect actually. If you have got other cuts of meat that you want to use, that's fine. I've used recipes like this with cuts of roasting joints, which I've treated by a technique called velveting. I'll leave a card in the upper corner for you to have a look at. I've used it specifically in my kung po recipe, and the technique, if you have a look at that video, is explained in there. What I have done to this beef is I've put it in a marinade of a teaspoon of sesame oil, a teaspoon of corn flour and half a teaspoon of sugar, which I've let sit in the fridge for the past hour or so. So the meat should be infused with a lot of flavour, and the corn flour will help start to tenderize it even more. Like I said, being steak, it doesn't really need it, but every little helps. This is the size of ginger I'll be using for my recipe. This recipe feeds about 2, maybe 3 people, depending on your appetites. If you like ginger a lot, you can add a little bit more. If you don't like it quite so much, you can reduce it. It's up to you. What I'm going to do after obviously peeling it is to finally slice and chop it. Because we're slicing it quite finely, it's going to be able to give its flavour into the sauce quite nicely. Okay, my little wokmeisters, we're on to the stir frying bit. Get your woks hot. There goes the oil. Give it a good swoosh around. Make sure you're coating your wok, whatever wok or pan you're using. Make sure you get a nice coverage. And the first thing I'm going to put in is the aromatics. I'm going to actually start with the ginger. And we're going to put the onions in straight away pretty much. Get that going, and then I'm going to add the garlic, lots of garlic. Okay, the reason why we're putting the aromatics in first is because we want to get that into the oil, and then as we're cooking everything else, it should coat and start to absorb into the rest of the ingredients. There is a method to my madness. Add a little bit more oil. Spring onions go in next. That is a good smell combination. Gets your taste buds going, starting to drool. Right. Okay, touch more oil. Every time I'm only add a little bit of oil. Okay, get that hot. I'm going to move it slightly off centre and make some space, because what we've got to do now is put our meat in. Okay. Now, as with most meat, when we put it in, we're not going to touch it for about 30 seconds or so, because otherwise it's going to start sticking to the oil. Just spread it out evenly first, and then leave it. Okay, about 30 seconds. Let it start to caramelise. Let the heat hit it hard. It won't burn, not yet. And all the other ingredients are slightly out of the way, which means they're on a cooler part of the wok, so they shouldn't burn either. Okay. And what we're doing is we are effectively caramelising and browning off the meat, which gives it a nice little crust, which will give us a nice texture, sealing in the flavour, and the meat won't go mushy so much. It's especially important if you're cooking a cheaper cut of beef. Okay. So we're heading into the 32nd. Look, you can see the meat starting to kind of whiten on the edges. If I turn this over, yeah, look at that, baby. Crust. Okay. And the smell of the searing beef. Is there a better smell, you may ask? Okay, so we flip it over and try to brown the other side as well. And the hob is at full power, we don't turn it down at all here. With a few seconds. Okay, and now we can start to stir everything together and toss it. Look at that. At this point, I'm going to add the mangetout, which goes in last because it's thinner and cooks quickly. And we want it to still have a crunch when we eat it. Really important. Okay, and I'm going to add here my good pinch of salt and pepper. Again, add a little bit. Once the sauce is in, taste it. If you need more, add more. You can always add more salt. You can never take it out of a dish once you put too much in it. Really important. Look at that. It's coming together really nicely. Okay, and here is where I add my, I'm just using plain water today. You could use stock like I said before. Okay, but the flavour from the sesame oil which we put in the marinade should add to that layer of flavour. It's really nice. Okay, get that as hot as possible, as quick as possible. Whilst we're doing that, we can add our splash of soy sauce, our teaspoon of sugar, a little bit of sweetness. We're not trying to make a sweet dish, we're just trying to give it a little undertone of sweetness. Okay, and last but not least, our tablespoon of rice wine, which again just gives it a little sort of je ne sais quoi, if I'm being pretentious, which I am being right for this second. Pretentious switch off. It just adds a little bit more flavour. Okay. Check that out. Now I think we're nearly there. I am going to give it a little taste. Taste the sauce. Pretty good. Just going to add a tiny bit more salt and pepper. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to add my thickening agent, which is the corn flour in water, which some people call a slurry. Okay. Thicken the sauce nicely. Make sure you cook it out and then it begins to thicken. You don't want that floury taste, which corn flour is actually really good at not giving you. It's pretty good. You can use flours like plain flour, but then you're in danger of having a floury texture to the sauce, which is not as nice. It'll do, it's fine, but corn flour gives you more of a neutral effect, gives you a nice glossy sheen on the sauce. And there we go, guys. Check this out. Beef, ginger, spring onion. Get your taste buds ready. Check it out, guys. Oh wow. I'm gonna have some of this beef and some mangetout. The beef is really tender. The crunch from the mangetout is delicious, and the sauce, the ginger isn't overpowering, it is there, just nice. Tiny bit of garlic and the spring onion, which is another sort of flavour. It's very fresh. I think that's the word that comes to mind when I'm eating this. It's just really fresh and quite light. It's not one of those kind of gloopy sweet dishes. It just really, you can taste it's healthy, but it's also got a lot of flavour in it, and the beef is very, very satisfying. So you've got everything. So there you have it, guys. It's easy, it's simple, it's delicious, it's relatively cheap, and it just will put a smile on your face every time you eat it. If you've liked what you've seen today, please subscribe, like, comment, give me suggestions for recipes, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Bye!